Hey peeps, Pinkolol16 here on another commentary of my own stuff. This is the beginning of the commentaries of Super Mario 64, The Curse of the Invincibility Frames, and this is part 1, the beginning. I'd had this idea of a series when I was 15, when I mostly typed the documentation of this up with my new laptop, and I was mostly inspired by Mario series Into the Fourth Dimension. Not Orem, but some aspects might have crossed over from those series, but I was mainly inspired by Into the Fourth Dimension since the ideas in that were interesting to me, and I wanted to make this big scale project. Another thing I also wanted to clear up was Blue's mystery. I wanted Blue, the character, to have a type of mystery around him, which I left open in SM64 Adventures, which I could later touch upon and complete, which I ended up doing in this series, which was also tied into the story as I typed it up. Mostly just ideas, which turned later into scripts. This series basically ties up Blue's mysteries and involves the Invincibility frames. People usually tended to write them off in series as they're either just there, ignore it, it's just a recording quirk, or they're a protective mechanism, as in people use them because they're good. So I wanted to reverse that, have an idea, oh, what if they're the main problem of the story? What if using them is bad? What if having them used is a bad thing and you have to avoid it? So, and I also didn't want to involve gameplay footage too much in this as well, so that was basically the ideas behind this series. So yeah, this is the start of the commentaries. The reason why this commentary is being released in close proximity to others in release date is because I talked about stuff in the other commentaries that would only be relevant if this whole series was finished, so I decided to hold off the commentaries till I finished the Curse of Invincibility Frames ones. And since I finished the series, I can now do that, so I don't have a good memory of watching the parts since I haven't watched them in a long time, but as I watch it, memories could probably resurface, being the creator and all. I liked Mario's idea of the cycle, the dimensional cycle. So in my own series, I also incorporated the idea of the same cycle, but I don't want this to take place in the exact same universe as Mario's world. Just think of it like a parallel universe or something. I know Super Mario 64 is this massive parallel universes joke. I'm not talking about that. I'm thinking of like a parallel universe between how my world operates and Mario's worlds operate in a similar fashion, but not in the exact same way. So I like the idea of the cycle and used it, and that's part of the series now. Pretty sure Mario's done some weird different things now, but I am not watching those, so yeah. I wanted the fact that everyone basically looks the same as a biological trait in everyone in this world, so that it's not so jarring just seeing everyone look like Mario. It's like an actual part of the world. It's weird, but there's certainly a lot of weird things out there, so I wanted that to stay as it was. Again, reversing that premise, what if invincibility frames were dangerous in a certain situation? So, yeah. Okay, yep. This particular kind of scene where the villains, they're basically villains since they're in a dark environment, where the villains talk first is it's just a thing that I picked up from various things I've seen, and it's a reoccurring thing in my stories. A lot of earlier stories I made, which were mostly Sonic fan fictions, would mostly incorporate some type of enemy talking about the plan beforehand, so that like it wasn't, so that I could verify it with myself before I continued the rest of the story. So it's just a recurring thing. I'm just gonna trying to remember what experiment meant and why they're here. I'm pretty sure it was something to do with the fact that they teleported here or something. They're talking about the energy. Now that I remember, they're talking about the energy. Basically, what you're gonna hear being explained later on, they're releasing they're releasing energy into the levels to force the invincibility frames to trap them there. So the energy is like just statically staying there. Then once you get invincibility frames, the energy is just like, oh, I'm gonna like coil around you like binding, almost like it's difficult to breathe, kind of that choking feeling. So they've teleported close to where the heroes are, so they can test out the energy before they send it out, because that would be stupid if they were to do it unknowingly. But he's testing it out on this guy Orange. We're gonna learn their names soon, and he's temporarily vulnerable, which means he could temporarily be used by the invincibility frames, and temporarily, because he doesn't want any of them to be trapped in a world when they're supposed to be running around deceiving us, which is kind of the whole point, and is kind of the reason why they talk. So he's like, we can't make it temporary, because if the energy is sitting around for 10 minutes and then it doesn't coil them anymore, then what's the point? It's not going to trap them for like forever. It's going to trap them for like 10 minutes. So, yeah. Now this is kind of ridiculous, since they're in Bowser in the Dark World, which doesn't have a 100 coin star to actually use the plot with, but it's a temporary usage of the energy. They're not really trying to see, oh yeah, can it go into a star yet? They're trying to see, oh yes, can the energy actually stabilize itself in an area? So, yeah. It goes along with later explanations. So essentially, they need to run around this place for a bit, let the energy all out, and then they need to run off and tag along to the next place, essentially. That's the whole point of the plan. We need to escape, so he's trying to get to the next dimension so he can niggy-nag us at the next place. Which in this series is the Star World. I also really like Sonic Rush Adventures music. Now, what this here is being sent, this is major part 16 spoilers, and this is the whole reason why this is a commentary over the series, so I'm basically going to be telling you stuff that's relevant to the story. He's feeling the energy which is centered at the Star Road, which is seeping out. And it's basically seeping out to help the plan proceed. So he's feeling that, and he doesn't like it, so he'll run off. He doesn't really have a major role after, at least like part 3, but he's just there to help the plot progress. But yes, he is a character and is important to one of the side characters who's going to later have a role. And yes, he's standing. That would be like a 2-second shot. I'm gonna turn the volume down. I don't want to listen to Now that line is super ambiguous. I must see my friend. Which, when in reality I probably should have scripted the line differently, like I must get help, but yeah, it's really poorly scripted scene. He's basically trying to run off to get help, but later he'll encounter what is really his friend, which is actually Jinder. And of course, since I scripted this in like February and I released this in like, I think I released it in like January, so it was summer, so I wanted to make some summer jokes. And since this bit takes place in February, it makes kind of a bit of sense, since February down here is still a bit hot. That's a Game Shark code where you did the replacing thing, and I did that because, hey, I need to replace the animation for a scene where they're lying down. I don't like using pictures like this often because, oh my god, this looks so jarringly out of place, but I positioned it fine. It's just, I don't really like how it looks in such an environment. But I needed a fan prop. The whole point is because I don't really like I don't really like when people use realistic versions of fans. So like, you look up fan on Google, you'd find a whole bunch of photos of realistic fans, and this wouldn't work in a world that's filled with polygons. So I thought a cartoony version that looks slightly out of place, but wouldn't look nearly as jarring as a real life a realistic fan in a cartoony polygonic environment. It's less jarring is what I'm trying to say. And I didn't put sound effects because I didn't care about it, and also the fan that I had at the time, and still technically do have, is fairly soft in sounding, so I didn't think it would need to be there. You'll notice it's literally the same scene, but it's just Jinder instead. I don't like that transition, by the way. Most of that is Google glitches. This is Akin's flashback, and a mostly very terrible one considering I can see the lines, but this was a very, very early attempt at a flashback. I also have a flashback in part 16, but I tried much harder there and still kind of failed, but hey, I tried. Well, that was a year after this part released. I was trying to reference how bad the heat gets to the point where someone would want to run into the place. Jinder basically kickstarts the plot, and because of the heat. And hey, since it takes place in what would be my summer, it kind of makes sense. And summer down here does get pretty terrible, so I wouldn't blame him for doing that, since most people down here tend to whine about the heat anyway. Yeah, I just like, oh, this is normal shenanigans for you lot, I'll just head off now. And I basically imagined it as in I walked out of the door and Blue walked just literally right in afterwards, so yeah. Yes, the whole series technically takes place in like a day or 2 days or something like that. Mostly I tend to cut this stuff out, but I again, since this is like it's supposed to be a sort of transition, I just sort of kept myself standing there in. It's not just meant to be a running shot. are meant to also stay there as well. Because it's part of the script. If I say that my character runs up, it's a scene where usually I just run up and then stop for a bit. Or whatever character it is. Basically what I'm trying to say there is, oh, I'm not going to go inside yet. It's not part of the plot. I'm not supposed to go inside. That's Arc 3, and that's all. The longest one, Arc 4 being the second longest. This series was supposed to have 6 arcs. They're not of equal length, but they're technically 6 arcs depending on the world they're in at the time. It's weird. If at all, really, because I don't think I used them too much before, so hey, let's use them now, while I have the chance. People mostly tend to point out, oh, why do you call a series Super Mario 64 if Mario's not the main character? Well, I called the series Super Mario 64 because that's the name of the universe this technically takes place in. Not that Mario himself is involved to a ridiculous degree. Which is, yes, really stupid, but hey, it was weird reasoning I had when I made the series, and future videos, if I make them, won't have the SM64 title at the beginning anymore, but they'll still be SM64 oriented, as in I'm not going to change the sudden content, it's just going to lack the beginning title, which doesn't make sense to most. So this series will still have it, but not anything else. However, they do appear in the series and do have an important role, which is being like part of the YTR group, which is, yes, still, I made the series before I left the group and continued even after I left it, so yeah, and finished it. My status in a group has no bearing on release date nor what I release. I made the story and I finished the story and that story is done and I don't need to deal with it anymore. I also adopted the R's because this wasn't randomly placing them wherever I felt like it. I just I would read the script line aloud in Mario's, or a sort of Mario voice, but then I would incorporate it into the script line where the A's would sound like A's. So where hello A sounds, it's like, oh yeah, hello would be, an A would be there. So yeah, this was really, most of these script lines were read aloud, Mario and Luigi's, and they're not just randomly placed, like how Mario did it in Moonworld, where it seemed like they were just randomly placed because, oh yeah, Italian accent. But I took some consideration into it this time. Although I didn't do it for Luigi for some reason. Too much for Luigi's case anyway. Some people might criticize me for using the word use when I should be using just you. At the time I made this, it was a common thing for me to say that, for me to say use in as a plural you instead. So it's just there as a quirk that I had at the time, being the character and the story is 15, nearly 16, so I was much different then. Oh yes, the story also incorporates some holiday that Mario and Luigi and Alberto and Pascal Mario took before the series started. They basically went to the Star Road for some kind of holiday and then they came back after hearing some story, which basically leads into the very rest of the story. I never do that sort of in-between cut again where the scene starts with a different song and then I just randomly cut to another one in between. Usually a scene will have a transition between. So I never do that kind of thing again. Like, I'm talking about the fact that in the world, which is supposed to be called the parallel, where Akin and where we were just before, where it functions like Australia and, well, the Southern Hemisphere, while this place functions like the Northern Hemisphere, essentially, even though they're, like, probably not even that far apart. Which is, yes, weird, but hey. Again, this is supposed to be a completely different world. So, heat will bring a curse. So essentially, on a really, really hot day, something will happen. It's almost completely obvious at this point. They're talking about the basically what the myth is describing right now is the energy that's going to come seeping in like 10 minutes or something. It's not even 10, it's going to be like 3. The energy that they were talking, that the two were talking about in the very beginning. We'll soon learn the origins of that later in the series. Where Pascal Mario got it from. In reality, it actually is kind of shoehorned in because the whole point is the villain himself. Also, you're gonna scream at me, why the hell isn't Mario here? The whole problem with the freeze camera curve was that I had to be really picky with angles and where I put the characters, because if I wanted the character to look somewhat different, instead of just having them stay in the same spot and wiggle their head like 3 different times, I needed to change the angle around a bit. This shot's really weird because it makes you seem, oh yeah, wouldn't Mario be here? But I didn't have Movie Maker to put him there in the first place, so I sort of just theorized, oh, isn't Mario just slightly a bit to the right of the scene? So yeah, I had to get really creative with angles. Creative, put that in quotes. Also, the outline of my text is really horrible for these shots because I'm placing it in the sky where blue is, and it's just ugh. In reality, it's not really the floating star, it probably would be lower than that. But yes, the star is, the energy is seeping out of that, and it's part of the story. Some of these scenes are going on for a bit too long, but I think I cleared that up later on. Also, yes, you can see the shots just slowly edging to the right. I didn't use the freeze camera code properly back then, 2014, when I originally made this. So yes, here's Jindo after his little explosion with the kin, actually, like 20 minutes later or something. I still don't like that transition. It's probably YouTube screwing it up more so than it was my actual video editing. Also, yeah, like, this is that wouldn't happen because I would spawn in a different place, but I needed to be there for the plot, so hey, that was sort of... It's weird, I just randomly teleported there, but hey, its transitions are nice, right? When this originally came out, YouTube had a much better looking format for this, so... Also, I don't explain because it's part of the villain. Yay, they're starting their plan bit. Also, let me point out that throughout the entire series, both of these two are actually possessed. So, yeah. It's part of the plot. Yes, I still call them teleportation stars. A teleportation star can only take one person at a time, so Jinder needed to find his own. I said he could find his own. There's like 5 stars in the darn place. A lot of them, actually. So yes, the star that's over that way has already been taken by guess who. You'll see him next part. Also, yes, this was before I left the group when I made this particular video, so I needed to ask him for a particular scene, and I'd already tried messing with the effects myself, but I don't think I could have gotten it to work properly. What I wanted to happen was this giant purple fog to appear outside. Starman 3 messed it up entirely and made it completely stupid, and completely forgot to remove the M cap. So the whole thing basically looks like a giant mess. And I also thought he was going to include his own music track, but he didn't, and I forever left it that way, except with my beta version, which is a cruddier resolution with one music track in here, which is the X and Y gym leader theme. I'm commentating over the normal version, so you're not going to hear any audio, except me talking. It gave me a proper lesson. Never ask him for a scene again, because obviously he can't create proper scenes, as you'll see in the next 2 seconds. And also he can't disable resample for his life. And of course this lovely mask fade, well it's not even a fade, this lovely mask cut, where he didn't even time the scenes properly. And again, the M cap, which is highly inconsistent with the rest of the series. And I wanted it to be sort of looming and dark, and he forgot to do that as well. Of course, again, I attempted all of this beforehand, but completely failed, so I was like, oh hey, can you do this for me? And he did, and failed miserably. And watch as he does the same thing. Oh look, the aspect ratio is not even fixed. Watch as he does what he does with his normal videos, with my video here, you'll see it in a moment. The aspect ratio is not even fully done properly. He didn't remember to do it. It's just this weird square, and it's really stupid because it's not. It doesn't even look like a fog. It just looks like weird clouds. Now, as you can see, he repeated the darn recording again, and like just plastered the filter over it. I'm not proud of what he did, and I'm not proud of what I did. I'm not proud of this specific scene. I didn't like it. So yeah. But yeah, the energy is supposed to be affecting them right now. So the energy is supposed to be all around them, going through the castle and affecting all the levels, so that the energy is just there, ready to coil around them whenever they get hit with invincibility frames. But because of course it's foreign and unfriendly, we need to stop it. Again, I thought he was going to include music for this, and I would have to ask him, hey, what's the music track? But he didn't include any music at all, and I thought, oh, what the hell? So, yeah. Nothing's actually happened to them, by the way. They're supposed to just feel normal, except, oh yeah, what the hell was that fog? Also, I forgot to disable resample here, but of course after all the time it was not worth it. Okay, that's pretty much a goof. He's not supposed to feel compressed before he gets hit. Now he's supposed to feel compressed because he got hit. Anyway, see y'all. Have a good day. Peace, and I'll see you in the commentary over part 2. So see you then.